So just as a reminder, if you're just joining, make sure your audio and video are off for the entirety of the webinar. And Dana, if you want to get started, you can get going now.
Okay, hi everybody, welcome to this Horizons webinar, Faculty Fest edition. So this webinar is specific to the Faculty of Arts and Science. And before we get started, I'll start off with a land acknowledgement. So McMaster University sits on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee Nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. This agreement is also a covenant with nature. Take what you need, leave something in the dish for others, and keep the dish clean. We share this acknowledgement with you today to urge everyone to reflect on who originally protected and cared for this land, how we came to be here, and the responsibilities we hold in caring for the land we share with the community. Especially in institutions of higher learning, it is our responsibility to create space where we can engage in conversations about the reality of Canadian history, challenge our dominant ideologies, and continue to call out injustices and inequalities that impede us from Indigenous justice and reconciliation. So we encourage everyone to take time to learn and reflect on the history of the land you live on, and you can do so through the link provided on this slide. So before we get into the faculty-specific programming today, we'll talk a little bit about what the MSU, or the McMaster Students' Union, is. So the MSU is a student organization that represents over 24,000 students, specifically undergraduate students that are enrolled in 18 or more units. The MSU runs over 36 businesses and services that aim to help enhance student life, and MSU Horizons, which is us, is a service governed by the MSU. So what is Horizons? So Horizons is a leadership conference for first years to develop lifelong leadership skills. So typically Horizons is a 3-day, 2-night leadership conference that happens every summer. But this summer, due to COVID-19, our conference programming has kind of shifted into what you're seeing today. So everything's been transformed into an online experience. And as a team, our aim is to kind of lay a foundation for leadership and academic excellence and help first years through their transition to university through running sessions and events. Okay, so welcome again to this week's webinar. Just a reminder, if you have any questions that come up during the webinar specific to any of the arts and science speakers that we'll have today, feel free to message Ganeet in the Q&A function, and we'll hopefully get to them at the end of the webinar. So we'll introduce a little bit of the voices and faces you might be seeing today. So starting with myself, my name is Dana, my pronouns are she and her. I'm going to my 4th year of life sciences. I'm one half of the MSU Horizons sponsorship and fundraising coordinators, and I'll be a moderator today.
Hi, my name is Ganeet, my pronouns are she and her. I'm going into my 4th year of health sciences. I'm one half of events at Horizons, and I'm going to be your moderator today. So if you have any questions for art science specific, please send them over to me.
Hi everyone, my name is Maliha. My pronouns are she and her. I'm going into my 2nd year of kinesiology, and I am the Horizons Outreach Coordinator. I'm also your admin for today.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany. My pronouns are she and her. I'm going into my 4th year of integrated science. I'm one half of the sessions coordinators for Horizons, and I'm another administrator. So if you're having any technical issues, please feel free to message one of us.
So now we'll go into the next panel. Sorry.
I can go now? Yeah.
Sorry,
Cool. So I'm Haley. My pronouns are she, her. I'm going into my 3rd year of Art Sci, and I'm one of the Art Sci faculty planners this year. I have some cool interests right there, and you're welcome to send me questions at my email, and check out our Art Sci specific Welcome Week specific Instagram. That's also on the slide.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia. My pronouns are she and her, and along with Haley, I make up the other half of the Welcome Week planning team for Art Sci this year. Just like Haley said, if you have any questions that aren't answered in the webinar tonight, feel free to email me as well.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Ezra. My pronouns are he and him. I'm going into level 3 of Art Sci, and also feel free to email me or let me know if you have any questions at all. Yeah, I think that's it.
Hi everyone, my name's Katerina. I'm actually, she, her pronouns would be preferred. And I'm going into my 4th year of the Arts and Science program. I'm also an ArtSci Welcome Week rep like Ezra, and also combining in P&B Psych. So if anyone has questions about that, you can definitely reach me at my email there. And yeah, that's all for me.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi has been a little choppy, but we'll just get right into talking about how we can study for different courses as an art science student. So I'll hand that over to our panelists.
So I think a big thing for studying all your courses is just to try to attend office hours when you can. I know a lot of your profs will be hosting office hours online in first semester, as well as all of your TAs. And depending on how comfortable you are with your profs, sometimes your TA is a really good option because they've taken the course as well. And there'll be art sci students for your art sci courses and upper year students for your other courses. Your profs are also super nice, so don't avoid them. I know your calculus prof especially is super, super helpful. Yeah, Julia's clapping. I went to her office hours a ton during first year, and she really, really helped clarify things. Anything else, Julia?
Yeah, I'll just jump in on that. I think one of the challenging things for a lot of people in art sci is in first year especially, you have different courses in a lot of different subject areas. So you'll go to a class like Practices of Knowledge, which is a lot about reading and writing, but then you'll also have calculus, which is a whole different kind of studying. So for me, especially in first year, it took me a long time to find a balance. And I realized I actually preferred taking handwritten notes, which is fine. Like you'll find what works for you. I know a lot of people who do some notes on the computer and some by hand, and don't be worried about like getting it right away, because it took me at least 2 months just to kind of settle into a routine and figure out that like certain ways of working work best for one course, but using a notebook, for example, would be better for another course. You'll find out what works for you.
Yeah, and like your first few weeks are all about experimenting too. So like try different things. If you find out that one of your peers is like taking written notes, maybe try that for a class. And if it's really not working for you, like don't go back. You can also just ask like your peers and upper years too for what works for them. I know like for me personally, I do all of my notes like handwritten, but as Julie was saying, like a lot of our peers will do everything typed, and it's nice for them because they can print out all their notes at the end. A lot of people use tablets too, so it's totally up to you.
Yeah, and I guess, oh, sorry.
No,
yeah, ditto to what Haley and Julia said of just like being mindful of what works for you and what doesn't. And it's good to keep in mind that the first couple of assignments you get typically for your classes aren't weighted very heavily in terms of your grades and markings. So just really take in the feedback that the profs give you and try to see what works for each of your courses, and just be mindful of what works and what doesn't.
I was going to say I can't speak to it on specifically for arts and science, but just as a university student studying, I found that in my first year, time management was something definitely to experiment with and like work on. So just like a lot of the students right now that they just mentioned, kind of experimenting, and don't be afraid to like try like different study methods like 1 week and change it up the next week. But yeah, just find what works for you.
Yeah. I also just want to emphasize that like you should also use your peers as a resource too. They'll be your friends, and I know that studying with like art sci friends is always super fun. So it's a good way to be social and also like work on all your courses too. Often art sci's find they have different strengths with the first year courses. So let's say like you love POC, but you're not a big fan of calc. You can obviously be a fan of both. But if you find someone else who has different strengths than you, it's really good to work together and collaborate. And I found that I like often would learn more from my peers because they walked me through the process than like looking for solutions at the back of a textbook, for instance.
Amazing, that was really helpful. So now we'll move on to how students can get involved in art sci teams and clubs.
I guess I can jump in here. I think SIB forms went out already, so getting involved with your SIB family is one great way to get involved in the greater artside community, because chances are your big SIB or your grand SIB or your great grand SIB will be involved in activities that you might be interested in. There's a lot of things up on this slide, but SAS as well, if you're not sure what SAS is, it's the Society of Arts and Science Students. So it's kind of like student council, but within ArtsI. Kat is on SAS, Haley was on SAS this past year. I'm sure they could speak more to it than I could.
I can speak to SAS, so that's okay. So SAS has a combination of like elected and non-elected positions. Every year we have reps for each year. So there'll be 2 first-year reps that are selected by ArtsI, and those reps will be planning events for your year. So you have a little budget, and then they'll plan like cool events to help you guys connect. We also have like all around like general ArtsI events that are super fun. There's tons of traditions like coffee house, where it's kind of like a talent show. We have milk and cookies, where we discuss really cool topics and eat homemade cookies. So there's tons of ways to get involved, and each of those events actually needs people to volunteer and help plan them. So we have little like communities and sub councils in SAS too, so you can sign up for those even if you're not an elected member, and still be involved in SAS initiatives, even if you're not one of the elected first year representatives. I can also speak a bit to intramurals too, because I was the athletics and recreation officer last year, which is someone who was supposed to organize a bunch of the intramurals. There's one this year, his name's Mateo. He's really cool. He'll probably be emailing you really soon, and he can give you information on getting involved in intramurals when we're back on campus. Intramurals are a great way to meet other people because you'll be in a team with a bunch of other ArtsIs if you join the ArtsI ones, and you'll get to mingle with a bunch of the upper years. It's also really cool if you have other friends and other faculties to make a team together too, and you'll find that you see a ton of your ArtsI friends on other teams, and you can be like super competitive and stuff. I always found that super fun in first year. I guess I can speak to ArtsI musical too. So every year we have a tradition of running an ArtsI musical. So upper year students will write the musical over the summer. It'll be approved, and then in the fall you'll be hearing from the musical producer and directors about auditions and getting involved. We staff the entire musical with ArtsIs. So the pit band is all ArtsI students, plus or minus a few from other faculties. The cast is all ArtsIs with like a few SoCSIs sometimes because they don't have a musical. And it's just super fun. The musical is always really silly and plays on like a bunch of ArtsI stereotypes and like rivalries and stuff. There's always a bunch of like dressing up as other faculties, which is cool. So it's always a really, really good time. And the musical is a great way to develop community. People get really, really close because they spend a ton of time together going over dances and lines and practicing songs. So if you have a musical talent, or you just want to be involved in dance, or you just want to try something new, the musical is definitely a good place for you too.
Yeah, and just to jump in, I've been associated with SAS and ArtsI Musical, and I think a really big benefit of attending these kind of things is that you meet people outside of your year, because it's really easy to just be close to the people within your year, but it's a really like interesting way to meet other ArtsIs. And there's so many different ways to contribute to these things. So even if you don't really see yourself as like a theater person or like a band person or whatever, you could still like write the script for ArtsI Musical, or you could help with the stage handling, behind the scenes kind of stuff, or like organization on SAS and things like that. So like there's a lot of different ways to put your strengths to good use, or like try something new within SAS and the ArtsI community. And generally speaking, like ArtsIs are super welcoming, and I've met, I think the peers are like the strength of the program. Honestly, I've like made really close friends within ArtsI. So I think it's super cool to try these things out just as a way to get to know people, and it's something to really consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think also, yeah, like exactly what you said. I think it's a great opportunity, and ArtsI just in general has a lot of opportunities all the time to get involved and to try new things. So like I tried a lot of new things. This past semester I played inner tube water polo, which I couldn't tell you what that was before a few years ago. And last year I was on the art side team, and they were really welcoming, and they didn't care that I didn't know how to play. And it's like that in general. It's like that with the musical. It's like that with any of the intramurals. Like there are people on the hockey team that just learned how to skate, not just learn how to skate, but like they never skated before. And so I just think in general, it's a really great opportunity to get involved, and there's different stuff happening all the time. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, I agree. It's also really important to note too with like all of these extracurriculars that it's kind of choose your own adventure. So if you find that like you are really, really worried about your classes, you can kind of like only commit to a few of them, and some of them are lower commitment than others. For example, with the musical, if you're in pit band, you can just opt to do like one song, and then you have less rehearsals, but you're still involved. Or maybe you're only involved in like the cookie baking community because you like to stress bake, and that's your contribution. So it's not like you have to like go all in. You can kind of dabble with things while you're still transitioning to first year, and you can still have a ton of fun meeting new people, even if you're only doing like a little bit.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. If you guys don't have anything else to add, or any of our speakers, I can move on to the next slide. Okay, so now our speakers will talk a little bit about some mythbusters of common art side myths.
Can I touch on the first one? So I feel like this was a big thing for me going into art sci, where I, in high school, like loved every subject that I took. Like I was awesome with English. I loved science, I loved math, which is kind of why I chose art sci, because I didn't want to give anything up. But I found when things got more specialized in first year, it was kind of good for me because I figured out which courses interested me more than others. I think that's a lot of art sci's think they have to love every single course, but in reality, you're like the reason you're in this program is to kind of figure out which ones you love more than others, and that'll help you figure out where you want to go and what you want to do with your degree. So you might find that like maybe calculus is not your thing in first year, and that's okay. I find that I've actually learned the most from the courses that I'm not a big fan of, because they've taught me how to persevere, and they've taught me how to really refine my study strategies so I'm more successful, especially when I'm not passionate or like gifted in something. So you're gonna you might not have courses like this. You might just be really, really good at everything. But if you do have courses that you don't like, that's okay, and it's normal.
I can jump in. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to any of the other ones. I'm really big on the third one. You'll have to pull an all-nighter to finish your coursework. I'm someone who needs a solid like 8 hours of sleep to function as a human being. And this was something that I lived with another art sci in first year. We were roommates, and we had completely different sleep schedules, and we were both very successful in the program. So I think one of the biggest things for me was recognizing that just because you're starting university doesn't mean all of your habits suddenly change. You're still you're still the same person. Chances are your study skills and the way you budget your time will be quite similar to however you manage that in high school. For me, I prioritized sleep over an extra hour of studying because I knew that the next day I probably wouldn't be able to function well on that test if I hadn't had that sleep. But then again, if you were someone who stayed up till 2 a.m., like my roommate, and that was the way that she coped with studying, and she actually did better that way, then you'll probably carry that through to university. You don't like magically become someone who pulls all-nighters. Just be true to who you are, and just because people around you are pulling all-nighters doesn't necessarily mean you have to as well.
And I guess I'll talk on the last one. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm specialized in P&B, so like psychology, neuroscience, behavior. And Yeah, so I think one thing I was kind of self-conscious of as I was going through my art sci degree is that because this degree is like broad and covers a variety of topics, that like people wouldn't take if I was pursuing a STEM career, they wouldn't take it as seriously because I had a degree that was more general. But I just wanted to note that like even within within the PNB department, like I've had the program advisor tell me how much PNB profs like art science students, just because I mean we have like a good reputation in the faculty and things like that. So don't think that like you've closed doors off or like you can't be specialized in STEM because you're in the arts and science program or anything like that. And actually one thing I really recommend is there's the Quantum Leap Careers in Science conference, and basically they bring in like industry professionals from different science careers, and they talk about their experiences and like how they got into that career and things like that. And I actually attended, I think every year of my undergrad now, just because I always learn something new and I find it very helpful to just hear about like different career paths I may not have even considered. And the thing is that a lot of these careers are available to me and they are open to you if you like do the right prerequisite courses and things like that. So you can definitely specialize in art sci, and or you can leave your degree general if that's your preference, but I'm just saying don't feel like your degree is so broad that you know you can't do anything with it or something like that. Like I think that's a really big misconception about liberal arts degrees. There's a lot of opportunities open to you if you take the right prerequisites and look into, you know, after undergrad opportunities and things like that. Yeah, I was speaking from a STEM perspective, but it goes the other way for that too, just to say that you can specialize. And yeah, there's so many doors that are open to us as art sci students.
If I could just jump in here. So Kat's combining, but you can also totally do minors too. Like I'm looking at doing a double minor because I couldn't decide on one thing to combine in. So like there are other options if you want to add the extra words to your degree, but it's also super cool to just be an honors art sci student and to have that as your degree because you get to pursue all of your little like niche unique interests. So if you like music history, take music and popular culture or something like that, where you might not have as much space if you're combining, but if you're really interested in the subject, it makes sense to like shift your degree in that direction. I can also speak to the second myth too, that you won't make friends outside of art sci, which is totally false. As I said, with intramurals, like you'll definitely make friends. In intramurals, you guys all have your archway groups, you'll make friends in your archway groups. There's kind of like a myth that like if you hang out with other people outside of art sci, you're dark side too, which is totally not true. Like you're allowed to have other friends. It makes sense for you to have other friends because you're going to be doing so many other things. You'll be taking other courses where you might not have like your art sci peers, for instance, if you're combining, and that's okay. It's okay to like branch out too. You might be working in Hamilton and have like work friends. So the point is like it's okay to have other friends and you will make other friends because you're doing other cool things too.
Awesome. I can definitely resonate from a lot of the stuff that you mentioned, especially in terms of courses. I come from a pretty general program too, so I was afraid of not being able to make friends like within my program and outside my program. But like you mentioned, Haley, like you all mentioned, honestly, just like getting involved and finding those opportunities that are definitely there in every program is the best way to do that. Thank you. Oh, this is pretty cool. So now we'll have the speakers talk about what their favorite courses were in first year.
I'll just start. I think my favorite course is a tie between practices of knowledge and argumentation. And this really surprised me because in high school, I had basically only taken like science and math courses. So I kind of went into this thinking like, oh, I'm like a STEM student, and I'm using the word STEM a lot, but I mean, that's my way of describing it. But yeah, I basically went into university thinking that like I'm like a science student, and then that's what my strength was, that's what I'm good at. And then I think the cool thing about art sci is that it kind of flips that upside down. Like what Haley kind of talked about is like once you specialize, you kind of realize things that you didn't realize before about the things that you prioritized in high school or what your interests were. And I went into art sci thinking that calculus was just, it was going to be my favorite course. It was going to be like the best thing ever. And I mean, I did enjoy it. It definitely wasn't a bad course by any means, but I think realizing how much I absolutely loved like practices of knowledge and argumentation, yeah, I don't know, it just kind of made me realize that there's more to like myself, I guess, than I had realized, and like my interests and hobbies, and then I was kind of boxing myself into like high school stereotypes a bit, if that makes any sense. So yeah, be prepared to like kind of realize new things about yourself and open yourself up to other interests that you may not have considered before, and just be open to that and don't deny it. Because I think I was really surprised that I found practices of knowledge as like mind-blowingly amazing as I did. So yeah.
True. I can also say like I did enjoy every course in first year. I think mine has to be a tie between calculus and my elective course. I decided to defer my 2 first-year science courses to the summer and second year. So I took like first-year advanced French during first year, and I like totally loved it. If you're taking any French in high school and you like it too, I would recommend taking advanced French at some point, just because the course is really cool and you get to try like writing essays in French, reading novels, doing grammar. There's a little bit of everything that you would be doing in more specialized like upper year courses. So that was kind of cool. And so that course is tied with Calc. I love Calc. I'm looking at minoring in math. So our calculus course in first year was a great place to start because Dr. Harada makes it really cool, even if you're not a big fan of Calc, because she integrates so many like examples. We write scientific communication assignments both semesters, so you get to explore applications of calculus and how that kind of applies to the scientific community and a topic of your choice, and dabble in a bit of scientific writing. And also she just does really cool like proofs, and her assignments are kind of like puzzles, so that's why I liked it. But I'm sure other people had other courses they might have liked a bit better.
My favorite course, hands down, I like Kat and Haley. I loved all courses in first year, but I really loved global challenges. I did a lot of like extracurricular social justice type stuff in high school, and coming into that course was so incredible for me because every single lecture focused on a different topic. So not only was I learning about a lot of different things, but it wasn't about memorization. It was really learn for the sake of learning. And then at the end of that course, you'll write a major paper called a capstone, which allows you to explore one specific topic that you are personally interested in. So for me, that was great because I literally could spend time doing schoolwork while simultaneously researching topics that like I loved and I was passionate about. So yeah, every aspect of that course I absolutely loved. But all my art sci courses, like I really enjoyed calc as well, and argumentation, and even practices of knowledge. I had never taken a philosophy course before, but I really enjoyed that course as well. I think every course is kind of geared towards stretching a different aspect of your academic skills, and so you'll find yourselves liking courses that you didn't necessarily think you would, or if, like Kat was saying, you came from a background where you did a lot of science or math in high school, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that a lot of the more traditionally like artsy courses are actually really interesting. I don't know if Ezra, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. My favorite art sci course in first year was Practices of Knowledge by far. I really loved that course. I had never taken a philosophy or literature, any course like that before. So what I was learning was it was really a new type of course and not a type of course that I thought I would like at all going into it. But it was really cool. I loved all the readings. There were completely different readings from like ancient texts to more modern texts. And we had really interesting discussions. Once a week we had tutorials where we had more small group discussions, which were also very interesting and very just get involved, and you don't really need to do anything for those. You just discuss. And I personally thought that I learned a lot, and it really opened my mind to think about other things that I just hadn't thought about before, and just like explore a new side of myself, and really like a new field, and just opened me up to the rest of the humanities because it was very broad and very just opening people up to different ways of thinking. So yeah, that was by far my favorite course in first year.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks everybody for sharing that. I'm sure everybody on the call right now is really like appreciating all of this, because I know as a first year I was especially like worried about all my first year courses. So hopefully everybody got a little insight into that. So academic support, which is a really important part of every faculty, and hopefully our speakers could touch on that.
Yeah, so as we mentioned before, your profs are an excellent resource. They're the ones who will be making all of the lecture content, so they really know what's going on. So they'll be hosting office hours, possibly through some sort of like online video software such as Zoom. Usually like once or twice a week, they'll show you the office hours during your first class when you go through the course outline. And they're really great. All your profs are super, super interesting. So make sure you take the time to get to know them and to really like use them as a resource and ask them questions. Your TAs are also really great resources because for your art science specific courses, a lot of them will be upper year art science students or students who are in their masters for like your writing courses and stuff. So they'll definitely know what they're doing, and there's no such thing as like a stupid question. So you can definitely go to your TA with like a clarification, and that's okay. Or just ask them about like advice about studying. Both of your profs and your TAs are there to help you. They host office hours because they want to help you. So make sure you take advantage of those.
Like the slide says on the bottom, there's also Shelly and Rebecca, who are program administrators within ArtSci. So if you have a last name from A to L, Shelly is the person you'll go to. And if you have a last name from M to Z, Rebecca is the person you'll go to. And they're both lovely. If you have any problems with things like courses, enrolling, or really anything academic related later on, you can reach out to them. I'm sure they'll be introducing themselves to you shortly if they haven't already. I would also just say, in general, don't be afraid to ask questions. In first year, I think I had a lot of questions, but I didn't know what those questions were. So a lot of times I would just tag along with friends to office hours, or just hang out at office hours or like at TA office hours even, and listen to other people's questions. Because I found when other people talked about the problems they were having with course material, it made me realize the challenges that I was facing, even if I couldn't articulate them. So I think it goes back to that community feel of connecting with your peers and reaching out to the supports, even if you can't articulate what challenges you're having in this like nice, eloquent phrase. Just go, because it'll help, even if you don't realize it'll help in the moment.
Yeah, and I feel like this, I feel like this goes without saying because it happens pretty naturally on its own, but definitely like talking things over with your peers about your assignments and what ideas you have and just bouncing things off of each other can be really helpful, especially if you're, classes like POC or argumentation where it's like written assignments that even just talking through your ideas can be really helpful sometimes.
And then if you guys wanted to touch on this question, which I'm sure a lot of first years are definitely considering.
So like I mentioned before, I went to the Quantum Leap conference every year, and that's because, like I said, I kind of had a paranoia about like, what am I going to do with this degree? And like, is this degree too general? Stuff like that. And just to acknowledge. So you don't need to be combined to like get into certain specialized careers. I was actually amazed by how many things you can do with this degree just by having the right prerequisites lined up. So I remember I looked into like cardiovascular perfusionry, which I hadn't even heard of that career. I didn't even know what it was. Right now I'm pursuing like speech language pathology, and I know people who are going into policy and government work and anthropology, things like this. So like there's so many different career opportunities you can pursue. It's not just like be a doctor or be a lawyer, which I think a lot of people go into university with that mindset, which is totally understandable because that's kind of how we're told to think about these things, or those are just like the prominent careers that we have in mind. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do with your degree. So don't let other people beat you down about like having a general degree, and like just doing research into different opportunities and stuff, you can find a lot of things.
Yeah, and you'll find that like as you go throughout your undergrad, you'll have new experiences that will kind of shift the direction that you were thinking before. Things like taking alumni experience inquiry, which is a like upper year inquiry course that you have the option of taking in 3rd or 4th year, or even 2nd year if there's space. And in this course, you get to meet a bunch of the ArtsI alum who have done really, really cool things, and they'll tell you all about their experiences. And I find that even like meeting ArtsI alum at New World of Work, which Julia can definitely speak to after, was super helpful in just like letting me know what I can do, because I had kind of locked myself in like the box of being a teacher or being a lawyer. And so like just hearing what everyone else is doing, how they've kind of floated around and found themselves even after their degree was super helpful.
Yeah, to touch on what Haley said, I think the biggest help for me has been learning about what alumni have done with their degree. And I think I'm very passionate about the whole idea of like not locking yourself into a silo. Like you won't get to a point, at least in my opinion, I don't think you ever get to a point where it's like, this is my career and I am done. I think for me, at least, I will forever be a work in progress. And I think meeting alumni and talking to alumni was a big part of that, and a big part of me realizing that. So like Haley mentioned, every year in the ArtsI program, the New World of Work Forum is a program that runs. I think it's usually 4 student project managers are chosen and get to run the forum. And I was lucky enough to be one of them last year. And basically, it brings together a lot of ArtsI alumni who run different workshops and speak about their experiences in the world of work and what they've been doing. And it's just a really great space to kind of, even if you come in with no expectations, and you'll learn a lot from people in careers that you never even would have considered before. And I think that's the most valuable aspect. You can come in with a mindset of like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, and come out of the New World of Work Forum and be completely confused in the best way possible. And I really do mean that in the best way possible. I think it opens you up to a whole world of different things that you can do that you never would have even heard of or considered before. Sorry, Ezra, I know we've all been talking a lot, but I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to add that a lot of people come into ArtsI. I mean, you touched upon this, but a lot of people come in thinking they know what they want to do. They say, okay, I'm in ArtsI because I didn't want to do a general science program because I'm also interested in the humanities, so I wanted to do both. But I know I want to be a doctor after, or a scientist or whatever. Or people that say they know they want to be a lawyer, or I don't know, something in they wanted to be something where they don't use sciences, but they wanted to also learn how science and arts relate to each other, and the interdisciplinary sort of field that connects the two. And I came into the program saying there was no way I'm going to be a doctor. I'm only going to do the sciences I need to do, and that's it. And 2 years later, now I think I'm interested in going into medicine. I don't know for sure. I'm still keeping an open mind, but like that happened to me. And a lot of other people had the exact opposite experience. So really anything can happen. And that's really a good thing. Like it could be scary at first because a lot of people want to know exactly what they're going to do in 4 years from now. But at the end of the day, it's great because it opens up your mind and it really helps you understand what you want to do and what you're interested in. And to be interested in a lot of things is really a good thing. It's not something to be scared of. And yeah, I think that's about it.
I just want to say, I think it's like super cool that you guys have the alumni experience like inquiry course, because I know for me, like I don't think my program does have a similar course to that, but definitely like looking for upper year mentors is always something that, like you have to do if you want to learn about like different alumni experience. I think that's really, really cool. So now we'll move on to the Q&A portion of this webinar. So we'll have around like 10 minutes for any questions that were sent throughout the webinar. So I'll just hand it over to the other moderator, and then Gini, if you want to take over.
Hi everyone. So if you have any questions still, you can send them on over to me and then I can get our speakers to answer to them. But our first question will be, how will SAS events work online?
We all unmuted at the same time. Haley, you can go ahead, or Julia.
I was just gonna say, I think SAS is still trying to figure that out too, but I presume that things will work in kind of a similar format to Welcome Week. We'll have events over some sort of like online software such as Zoom, and like we'll use breakout rooms maybe. Quite sure. I think it's all kind of like everything with the pandemic has kind of hit really hard, and we're all trying to figure out how to adjust still. But it's even with Welcome Week, like we're still learning new programs we can use. So I presume by the time the fall starts, SAS will have some really cool things up their sleeve.
And then another question that we had was, are there any social media pages that they should be following as an art sci major, or even to get updates for SAS?
Yes. So I'm just going to use this opportunity to like put in our Welcome Week specific social media. So you should be following Mac Artsci WW on Instagram and Arts and Science Welcome Week on Facebook. We also just started a class of 2024 page. So if you don't know about that, you can email me and I'll get you on there on Facebook. In terms of SAS, we post all of our events on the class of 2024 page. And there's also a SAS specific Instagram account, which I believe is SAS McMaster. Yeah. Everyone's nodding. Can't find it. Stalk our ArtSci account and it'll be in like the followers there. Yeah, or you can just probably search SAS and it'll come right up.
And if you want to, you can also drop them just in the chat below,
Yeah.
so you'll have access to it.
That's true.
So another question that we have is, how are evaluations like an art sci? Are there a lot of papers, tests, or presentations?
I think there's a little bit of everything. It obviously depends on the course. When we get closer to September, you'll be able to find all the course syllabuses on the ArtSci website under the tab that says courses, so you can check out what your profs have planned for each specific course. I would say in general, there tend to be less tests and more creative type projects. And what I mean by that is in calculus, for example, I think Haley mentioned earlier, there's a scientific communication assignment. So there is a real push to try to get assignments that aren't just traditional. You obviously will still have tests, you will still have exams and midterms. But yeah, there's a lot of different unique kind of assessment methods. I think off the top of my head, I want to say Global Challenges is the only first year ArtSci course that doesn't traditionally have an exam. You write a capstone paper instead. But other courses, you probably will have test kind of things. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in on this one.
Yeah, I guess I just want to add to going off of like the unique assessments. It's kind of like, because ArtSci is such a small program, a lot of our like assignment stuff isn't necessarily like more fill in the blank, because there's so few people that it can be like graded on like a more individual basis. So like an example of this I can think of is like, usually in science classes for your labs, you're following like a set of instructions and you're carrying out the lab that you're being instructed on how to do, kind of thing. But like for ArtSci physics, because it's such a small class size, we were able to like create our own experiments, if that makes sense. Yeah, if you guys want to touch on that. But yeah, basically I feel like I talk to people about my classes and sometimes they're surprised to hear how much like creative control we have over what we're doing. But it's just because there's so few people in the program that we're able to do that, which is pretty great. It's kind of a benefit. Yeah, so yeah, benefit. Yeah, and you'll see too with like written assignments, it's kind of like for other structured courses with like, you know, 300 people in the class, they'll probably give you like a set outline on what you're writing about. Whereas like for art sci, it's like find a thesis, you're on your own. You're not on your own, I don't mean like that. But I'm just saying there's not like a very set outline for what you need to do. It's kind of just like you choose what you do based on like a very, there's not much of a rubric, or there's not much set guidance for that. You kind of pick your own way with it.
So our next question is, I guess that's related to, so it's, what is the community?
So the community is kind of like a sub-council off SAS. A few of the SAS exec will take the community like kind of under their wing, and they plan community bonding events throughout the entire year. So they go on like little field trips to the art gallery. I think they went skating too. Trying to think what else they did. They do really cute, like wholesome things. And the community is kind of the group that plans it. And they'll run them open to all art sides. So even if you're not in the community, you can still go to all their events. And it's just a really cute, like wholesome group.
So our next question has to do with academics. So it's, do upper year art size post resources like old tests and notes?
I think because it goes back to kind of like the way that courses are structured, because they're so different, there really is no sharing of tests or notes, if that makes sense. I would say the exception with that is second year physics. The prof has been teaching that specific course for a long period of time, so he will actually provide you with like all the answers to past quizzes so you can practice. But other than that, because a lot of it is like paper based, or like written paper, or like different creative assignments, there's not a lot to share, if that makes sense. Obviously, your SIB families can help you out in terms of providing support of like what it's like to write a capstone. How do you go about like developing a thesis? But I think it's more advice than it is sharing actual physical paper kind of resources. I would definitely rely heavily on your big SIBs. Obviously know that everyone's experience is different, and any advice that they're giving you, obviously take with a huge grain of salt. But they have experienced whatever course you're going through, albeit potentially with a different prof. So they could potentially give you advice on what it's like finding a capstone topic. Like, how do you even go about finding a topic for a research paper? But again, profs are there as well. They're more than willing to help. But yeah, not a lot of paper sharing. I don't know.
In terms of like textbooks and stuff, you may get textbooks handed down to you from your SIB. Generally, they're like physical copies, so I don't really know how it's going to work. Also, like a lot of your profs for your other courses, not just physics, will provide like practice tests before all of your assessments. I know we have the same calc prof as you guys do this year, and she was really good about giving out practice resources before the tests, and the TAs also gave us a lot of practice problems in our textbook. So I would say like generally try and, if you're worried about a test, like try and use all your resources to practice, because it's more difficult in art side to find like past resources unless they're kind of given to you already. Especially because they might not be relevant since profs change and the courses get adapted every single year. Art side is really good about using course criticism, because we all do little like course evals at the end of the semester, and they'll like change the courses to make them better and more engaging. So the course that you're taking is going to be different than the courses that we took.
So I think that just for to keep time in mind, we will be stopping the Q&A session here. If you do have any further questions, or if we didn't get to any of your questions, these are the contact informations for everybody that was able to speak at our webinar today. So feel free to message any of the panelists or any of the Horizons team for any further specific questions. So I'll give you guys a second or two to kind of screenshot that if you'd like. But again, our webinars are recorded, so you're more than welcome to look at that later on as well. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you to all of our speakers for coming out today. It was really nice getting to know a lot more about the ArtSci specifics, especially for me, because I'm not from ArtSci, but I think that was all really comprehensive and amazing. We will be closing and ending the Zoom call now, so feel free to leave, and thank you everybody for coming out.